what has the Ecclesia Dei Commission actually said regarding SSPX masses and the Sunday obligation?
If I could spend a moment just going through the chronology and all of the Ecclesia Dei replies that exist, to my
Please do.
knowledge, because I've gone through all of them,
Yeah.
and they're all entirely consistent with what I just laid out, that one should not be attending the society masses, that they don't fulfill the obligation. It goes back to, the Canon 1248. The first reply that I found is March 17th, 1984 by Cardinal Oddi, where he simply says the masses have to meet Canon 1248. He reiterates that 1248 is the governing law here. It wasn't the clearest reply, but he at least stated that this is how you have to evaluate the situation. And in doing so, you would conclude because they're not a church, you wouldn't meet the ecclesiastical precept under that provision. Okay. Msgr Perl then, as he took over the Ecclesia Dei Commission, he issued a number of replies. His first one was in October 27th, 1988. Okay, this was after the consecrations. And he says in his reply in that particular one, the society masses are forbidden, and he bases it on the fact that the priests are not incarnated under 265. I'm just going to give you high points of these because there's a lot more that can be said. So there's the chronology. Oddi in 84, Perl in 88. Msgr Perl issues another reply on September 29th of 1995. He reiterates that the society masses are forbidden. Catholics cannot attend them, and that a desire to attend the traditional Latin Mass is not a lawful motive to go to the society. In other words, that Catholics do not have a right, do not have an unfettered right to the 62 Missal. Perl comes out then 4 years later with another reply, September 28th, 1999. And Msgr Perl reaffirms that the society is in schism and that one is excommunicated from the Catholic Church through formal adherence. Perl in that 99 letter also warned those who were attending the Mass not because they were supporting Archbishop Lefebvre's movement, but solely for the purpose of the Mass. He warned them not to do so because they would slowly imbibe the schism that he already declared existed. And if they did that, they would also be excommunicated. So again, he's exhorting people not to attend the Mass, even if it's for the love of the Mass due to the danger of schism. Again, Perl comes out on April 15th of 2002 in a communication that was addressed to the entire church. And he says, again, April 15th, 2002, that society masses do not satisfy the obligation because they are not offered in union with the bishop. Msgr Perl also goes on to say that it is a sin if one substitutes the society mass on Sunday for the Sunday obligation. There you go. Everybody says it's not a sin to attend a society mass. If you're attending a society mass to fulfill the Sunday obligation, it is a sin. It is a mortal sin if there's culpability because it doesn't satisfy the precept. Again, in this 2002 letter, Msgr Perl also says one must, if you're going to attend just for love of the Mass, you must abstain from Holy Communion. Why? Because that would be sacrilege, as Andrew is going to talk about. And he finally, again, states that a love for the TLM is not a lawful motive to attend these masses. Do you see what the church is doing here? It's consistent. Now, why is there so much confusion? There should not be confusion on this question, but I'm going to address why there is. And frankly, it's because the society apologists have exploited something here. After this April 15th, 2002 letter came out, Msgr Perl, who just said the society's in schism, their masses don't satisfy the obligation, you must abstain from Holy Communion, and it's a sin if you substitute, etc., he addressed in a private response to an individual on September 27th, same year, 2002. This was a private response. It was not intended for the universal church, unlike his April 15th 02 letter, a situation where the individual had no recourse to Catholic churches that would be required under Canon 1248. What this means is the person that Msgr Perl was replying to in the private letter was unable to satisfy the ecclesiastical precept under Canon 1248 because he didn't have churches he could go to. So this individual wrote Ecclesia Dei and said, can I attend a society mass for the Sunday obligation? And Monsignor Perl said, in a strict sense, you may do so. Okay, that's a qualifying statement. Because you can't go to a Catholic church sui juris, one in union with the bishop, we will say in a strict sense, you can satisfy the obligation under what? Under divine law. You're not satisfying the ecclesiastical precept of Canon 1248 because you're not attending Mass in a Catholic church in union with the bishop. But as a matter of divine law, in that strict sense, you can do so. You see, this is what has been totally misunderstood in the trad community. This was a private response in a very limited circumstance, which does not stand for the proposition that you can throw 1248 out the window, because that's not at all what it means. If this person would have said, could I pray 15 decades of the rosary instead? I'm sure Monsignor Perl would have said, in the strict sense, you can satisfy your obligation by doing so. You see, and this isn't just my interpretation, guys, because you know what happened? When this was exploited by the society and its apologists and published, even though it wasn't intended as a communication for the Universal Church, Monsignor Perl comes out less than 4 months later. Now, that's pretty quick given how slowly the church moves at times, right? But on January 18th of 03, Monsignor Perl comes out and reaffirms everything he said prior. He said, first of all, this was intended to be a private communication. It was for one individual, not for the entire church. And he confirms that society masses are, quote, illicit. They're contrary to the law of the church. Again, reaffirming that they're not satisfying the obligation. So there is the position of the church and Monsignor Perl. After Perl left his position, Monsignor Pozzo, Guido Pozzo, took over. He was actually the point person dealing with the society, trying to bring them into the Catholic Church, and he issued a number of replies too, and they're all completely consistent. I'll just name a few of them. On March 28th of 2012, there was a similar question posed to the commission. This was what was called a Friends of the Society chapel. Again, this was an independent chapel, just like the Society of St. Pius X, not considered a church under Canon 1248. The priests were not incarnated. Well, what do you expect Monsignor Pozzo to say? He said, guess what? Attending those masses, quote, don't fulfill Canon 1248. Why? Because they're not churches. He also reiterates what Monsignor Perl said. If one substitutes those masses for the Sunday obligation, they commit sin. And you can read the judgment. It says, can we attend the Mass? It says negative. Are we committing sin? He says, if it's substituted for the Sunday obligation, you are. So Archbishop Pozzo provides us an official statement here from the Catholic Church that masses that are offered in these independent chapels that aren't tied to any bishops, are illicit and do not satisfy the canonical obligation under 1248. He issued a couple more replies consistent with that on November 6th of 2012. He refers to Benedict XVI statement in 2009 in his letter to the bishop that the society has no canonical status. They're not a church in accord with Canon 1248. And then finally, on June 18th of 2015, and he reiterates that the masses are not offered in full communion with the church and hence wouldn't meet 1248. He also affirms that the society is not a church under 844-2, which is what we just talked about. And so all of the replies are consistent here. I've laid out every reply that I'm aware of. They're all consistent. They all say the same thing. The society has cherry-picked all of the public replies against their position. The society has cherry-picked one private reply that is bookended by two statements from Monsignor Perl in the April preceding and the January following, saying that the society masses don't fulfill the obligation. So I think that settles the score on that particular question as far as the Ecclesia Dei Commission is concerned.